Here's another little retouching project that we're going to work on. I've got two images open, one of my son looking kind of ornery and one of him looking a little happier. So what I'm going to do is take this happier picture that I like, and I'm going to grab its layer, drag it up on top of the ornery, and just drop it on top. Now, of course, if I liked the entire image better, I would just go with that image. But say there was something else wrong with the happy image, or maybe there was a book showing, or whatever that I didn't want to have. So what I want to do is work on this image that I like. We're going to zoom in, and I want to do a face swap. I'm going to select this head and put it on top of the other one. So you probably remember some of the things we're going to do first. If I come over into one of our selection tools, instead of using magic wand, well, actually, I don't even need to go further than that. I can come over here and select the subject. And that's going to take a couple minutes for the AI in Photoshop to select the subject and know what it is we're working on. So it's thinking hard about that. And I'm probably going to go into the select and mask, and I'm going to try to clean up that selection so it shows the hair a little better. So I'll go into select and mask, and now it's going to give us some options to refine those edges. So one of the first things I'm going to do is use the refine edge tool brush, and I want to add more of the hair to the selection. So I'm going to go, and that was a little too big, wasn't it? So let's Control Z that. And I'm going to make my brush a little smaller. I don't want to click on the hair that's already selected. I just want to have the plus kind of go around and catch that hair that we didn't have on there before. Let's go get this side a little too. It's picking up some of the books too. I'm going to change this over to something that I can see through a little bit better, because I don't really need this bottom part. So I'm going to take away from the selection with just my brush tool. Make that a little bit bigger. So I don't really care about that part. Let's go mask that off. Just kind of paint over the parts that I don't care about. Looks like he's wearing a bib, kind of. I'm going to zoom in a little more. I can get closer. Now, if I were doing this for a client, I would spend a fair amount of time on that selection, because that's really where you've got the most control in your mask. But for practice, I'm just going to go pretty close. And I'm going to zoom in a little further. You can see that right here, we've got a little bit more in our selection than we want. I'll go in there and just refine that edge. Okay, now I know with this image that it's a similar image behind it, so I don't have to be as careful as I normally would if I were pulling pictures from two different locations, but I still do want it to be, reasonably good selection. Okay, so there I've got the head. And what do I want to do with it? I want to come down to my output settings and decide what it is I want it to output to. So I do want it to output to a selection. I'll tell it okay. And now I've got the selection. I picked up some weird stuff at the bottom there too, but I can Control J. And now if I turn off these two layers, you can see I've got my selection to work with. So while I've just got this part here, I'm going to take the eraser and make it pretty big. And we'll just get rid of this bottom part that we don't care about. And I could also go in and paint over, or actually use the eraser. Let's make that smaller again. Get rid of some of these vertical lines from the bookcase that brought themselves into our selection. Go ahead and get rid of those. Okay, decent for now. And now I'm going to just get rid of that layer that I selected from. I'll just drag that down to the garbage. And now if I turn this one on, you can see I have both layers there. So I've chosen my layer one. I've got my move tool, and there are my two people. So I want to make the layer that I'm working with a little bit less opaque while I'm trying to place it. Not quite that opaque. Let's go maybe there. And now I can take my move tool, place that face. It's going to be a little harder because of the hair, but I'll show you what we're going to do with that. I'm going to zoom in a little more. I think I'll try and match up the eyes. There we go. That seems like a pretty good match. Let's see what it does down below. Yeah, that looks pretty good with his chin and his neck. His lips are off. We knew that because he was frowning in the first one. He's not in this one. Okay, hair looks decent. So I'm going to turn my opacity back up. See what we've got. We've got an extra ear there that we don't want. So there are a few different things. I can start erasing on my top layer. I can start erasing on my bottom layer, but somehow we've got to not have this funny line here. Another way we could look at that would be to flatten the image and use some kind of a blend there. I think what I'm going to do is use my eraser, and I'm going to make it a very, very soft brush so that it doesn't have hard edges. And I'm going to turn down my size, and I'm just going to blend that in. Okay, looks pretty good on the chin. That blends well. We've got a little funky place over on this other side. So let's just, oh, okay, there's a little bigger issue. Okay, so we're just going to kind of tease that to match those two layers. And you remember we had an ear problem over here. So we need to decide which ear we're actually going to keep, which sounds a little funny. I think I'll match some hair first. So I'm going to be on my top layer, and I am just going to erase that funny part of the hair. Zoom up a little bit there. Just get back to his normal hair color. And I'm just getting rid of parts of that top layer to blend it. So we're looking pretty good now. Let me go over and fix that ear. Let's look at it and decide what we're going to do. I think I'm going to erase that top ear. So I'm still selected on that layer. Just go color this out so that it's the correct ear showing. Okay, we got a little weirdness there. That's when I can come over here to, let's say we're going to use the healing brush tool. I'm going to make that quite a bit smaller. I want to select over here, so I'll click Alt and click to select that. And that is not working, and I'll tell you why. It's not working because it's selecting from the top layer where there's nothing there. So I actually need to be on my background layer when I'm selecting, and then I can come paint over and blend that ear in, maybe a little bit more right there. So, I mean, we could touch that up a little bit more, but you kind of get the picture there. I'm going to select my spot healing brush tool. Let's make that a little smaller. We'll choose some hair. Oops, choose some hair up here. We're gonna just kind of help that side burn out a little bit. Oops. Not like that. We're gonna go back over to our healing brush where we're choosing what it replaces with. And I'll select that hair. And then I can color in what's actually going to show up down here, color in that hair. So that's how you would swap in a different face. Put in a happy face. You could do that in a portrait or a family picture, or add someone in that wasn't in a family picture. That subject selection tool that Photoshop has added is just amazing for adding people in or changing faces or getting rid of blemishes or things. If we want to come in again, we can zoom in if we wanted to play with the remove tool. We'll see. This is kind of a big brush, so I'm not sure if it's going to smooth out for us or not, but we'll see what that does. Normally I'd use quite a bit smaller brush. And here we see the computer taking forever on it again. So I am going to go ahead and pause the video, and then I'll be right back when it's finished processing. You can see it helped those blemishes a little bit on the forehead. Other things we could use would be the blur tool. And again, anytime you're doing touch-up, you want to be absolutely sure that you're on a very soft, feathery, low hardness brush. Sometimes it is better to work with a bigger brush because it's selecting for more places, but I can, I've got a blur at 50%. Let's just see what that does to kind of blend those pixels on the forehead a little bit. I can come into my spot healing brush and let's touch up just a couple blemishes. And it's not doing it. Why? Because I'm on the wrong layer. So there, if I do that now on that layer, if I do some of my blur, I don't want to blur it too much because you can see it looks not real. But if I come back here and change my strength to, let's say 18, I can do some blurring then and it blends in and looks just fine. If I wanted to play with a few more of the blemishes, I'll go find that spot healing brush. Excuse me, the spot healing brush tool. And we'll just highlight some of those things that we'd like to be fixed. And if we wanted to, we could even work on under eye lines there a little bit. Here we've got a weird bit of book. Oh, that worked well, didn't it? Another reason to use the healing brush tool instead of the spot healing brush. So for now, I'm just going to Control Z that lovely spot out of there. Looking pretty good. We'll just grab that brush tool, get rid of some of these spots on his shirt. Oh, that needs to be on the lower layer because we only replaced face on the second layer. Zoom out a little more. Actually, I guess I can't see that very well. Let's make it a little bigger. So if you notice something is not happening that you think it should be, check to see what layer you have selected, because you could be doing some editing that you really don't mean to do. There we go. So we have him there. If we wanted to change it into a portrait, I would probably flatten this whole image right here, flatten it into one layer. And then I would go ahead and use the selection tool again and select subject again. It's gonna take just a minute, hopefully just a minute. Working on it. Okay, so there we have it. I'm not gonna worry about making the selection perfect right now. What I am going to do is go Control J to jump that, just the selection up to a new layer. And then I'm going to select my bottom layer, come up here to my filters and my blurs and go to Gaussian blur. And I'm going to turn that blur up a bit. You can see we're sampling it in the background, so you can see there you've got kind of the effect that an iPhone will give you when you are doing a portrait mode, but you can choose what parts of it are sharp and what parts of it are blurry. Could have done that with a mask, but just wanted to show you quickly how to do that. So that is another way of swapping faces, or even swapping whole people, or building them into an image that they are not in already. So I encourage you to play with that. If you don't have a subject to play with, grab your son or take some selfies of yourself with different facial expressions and take them in and see if you can change them and make them fit perfectly so that someone wouldn't notice that you had done a face swap. And with that, I will sign off and see you later.